Hello and welcome to the Mastering CPRIT Language Insider Strategies for Successful Submissions webinar. I'm Tiffany Willoughby, Associate Director for Research Strategic Initiatives and Education here in the Office of Research and Innovation at the University of Texas at Dallas. I have the pleasure of introducing today's moderator, Dr. Filippo Romiti. Dr. Romiti was born in Fivizzano, Italy. He received his Master's of Science degree in pharmacy with summa cum laude from the Università degli Studi di Parma in 2011. He then moved to Bonnie, Scotland, where he earned his PhD in chemistry in 2015. Also in 2015, Dr. Romiti moved across the pond and worked as a postdoctoral research associate in the group of Professor Amir Hoveyda at Boston College. In June 2022, Dr. Romiti accepted the position as an assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at the University of Texas at Dallas, and he is a CPRIT scholar. His research focuses on the development of new synthesis logics and chemical methods for the efficient, scalable, and concise synthesis of complex bioactive natural products and their analogs. Serving as today's panelists are Dr. Jia Chung and Dr. Zhenpeng Chen. I'm trying to do my best here with my pronunciations. Dr. Chung joined the Department of Chemistry at the University of Texas at Dallas in 2008 as an assistant professor and was promoted to full professor in 2018. His research focuses on the fundamental understanding of nanoparticle transport and interactions and the development of renal clearable nanomedicines for disease diagnosis and treatment. Over the past 16 years, Dr. Chung has received over $15 million in external funding from multiple funding agencies, including the CPRIT, Welch Foundation, UT STARS program, and the Lyda Hill Foundation. In 2024, he received the American Chemical Society's Wilfred T. Doherty Award for his pioneering work in renal clearable nanomedicines. Also with us today is Dr. Zhenpeng Chen. Dr. Chen is a professor fellow and Eugene McDermott Distinguished Professor of Mechanical Bioengineering, Professor of Mechanical Engineering and Bioengineering at the University of Texas at Dallas, Biomedical Engineering at UT Southwestern Medical Center, and a founding member of the Center for Advanced Pain Studies. His lab develops nanomaterial technologies to better understand, diagnose, and treat brain dysfunction, with over 15 million support from major agencies like NIH, NSF, DOD, and AHA. Dr. Chen has received many prestigious awards, including the 2024 Dr. Horace Furumoto Innovations Professional Development Young Investigators Award. He is also a fellow of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers and a National Academy of Inventors senior member. Dr. Romiti, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tiffany, for the introduction. And I want to start to say how lucky we are today to have Dr. Chen and Dr. Zhang are two superstars getting funded from CPRIT and other agencies. So their advice is incredibly precious. And so I want to start with some of the questions that came up is about contacting the program officer. So perhaps we want to hear from Dr. Chen, if he, before submitting your proposal or renewal, do you usually contact your program officer and what do you discuss with him or her?
Yeah, thanks, Filippo. That's a good question. So with NIH, I think it's imperative to talk with the program officers about the specific aims, but I have not had those interactions with CPRIT. That's my experience.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. So perhaps CPRIT is a bit different, so that's why we are having this panel. And so, I mean, of course, the two of you are incredibly successful, but I want to hear from Gia is like, were you always successful for your proposal or renewal the first try, and in case you were not successful, did that ever happen How do you cope with that? What do you do?
Yeah. So I'm my very first small CPRIT proposal was not successful, but that was back 10 years ago, or more than 10 years ago. But that's the first time for us to test the water, right? How the CPRIT works. And fortunately, the first the individual research award for CPRIT, we will get funded and with a really great score. And yeah, it's the bigger one got funded, the smaller one was not. So it's a little bit interesting, but I think the big things, the difference is the idea, how innovative the idea you come up with, and that's really affect the chance of whether you can get funded or not.
Yeah, thank you, Jie.
Yeah.
And so, apologize. So when you have to prepare for a renewal or an application, so how early you start preparing that? Maybe Zenpeng can chime in and tell a bit about his experience of how to prepare for renewal.
Yeah, I think that's a good application. As I think we are kind of have many things to do and tend to wait. So I think so for our large grant such as the individual research investigator award, those are like 10-12 pages grants. I think maybe give it a month or two would be reasonable. I've also had in the past, if it's something you continuously working on, and I had and you have lots of materials, I could put together a strong grant and get funded within a week, but that rarely happens. So I think have a couple month lead time to really go through the specific aims, and I think that in preparing the preliminary data, that's I think a longer cycle. That's what you have to do in the lab with the students and postdocs anyway. So that's a continuous process. But the proposal writing part, I think, is just start early, start a couple months at least. Yeah.
I think example that's very insightful. And you talk about preliminary data, and perhaps some of the preliminary data could be publication. And maybe Jie, you can tell us about how important are the publication that you obtain with your previous grant to get renewed. Is there like a magic number, or it depends on the field, or I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think we were a little bit lucky, and the most times our renewed proposals get funded. And but regarding the how many publications you need to have, I think the one way it's not, there's no exact number. It's more about how significant the discovery you made, and so that the reviewer can appreciate what you have done with the current grant, right? And then they will trust you in the future for the renewal grant. You still can complete what you proposed. Regarding the how big the publication is, it really depends on the research. And sometimes really the paper published in the Nature Nanotech papers helps, and the reviewer certainly mentioned this in their comments. On the other hand, it's not required. A reasonable publication, a peer-reviewed journal, I think it's good enough. The more important is still is the reviewer want to see what the current funding, current grant lead the discovery, and how this new discovery impact in the future, right? Help you propose a new idea for cancer diagnosis or cancer treatment. I think that's probably more important.
Thank you, Jie. And so perhaps something that comes to mind now is that, I even propose a certain number of aims. And, maybe Jen can tell us something about it. Like, do you always complete all the aims? And if sometimes doesn't happen, how do you justify that, certain aims, we know in research never goes in the way that we plan, otherwise we wouldn't do it. And so how do you justify that certain aim have not been completed and for your renewal?
And this is more related to the renewal, right?
Yes, that's for renewal. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the research direction, research questions can evolve. So I think it's quite often we pivot from the original aims. I think the key is to focus what you think are the important research questions when we, submit the annual report, and we report our efforts in each aim and related studies. In the renewal, we had actually some failures in the renewal, which could be a valuable experience. In the past, we waited and because we were waiting for some papers to come out, and we thought without it, we couldn't make a strong renewal. So we waited a cycle, a year, and then came back and actually did 2 renewal submissions, and eventually got it funded. So I think it kind of they don't. I think for the renewal, they don't necessarily look at whether you completed all your aims. They look at what you have achieved from your previous grant and whether that has led to publications or patents and translational activities or any impact that you can provide and measure. So I think those are maybe points to look at. If you think there's certain things you can do to strengthen your renewal, and I think it's reasonable to kind of maybe wait a little bit, make sure you're putting out a strong application, because they do look at if you resubmit your renewal, they do look at the previous comments and whether you have improved things.
Yeah, that's a very wise advice. Thank you very much. And so I don't know. I mean, I can ask Chia, but Dr. Ching, you can chime in too. Has there ever been a time where you were not funded by CPRIT? Has there ever been like a period for whatever reason you were without external funding, and how do you make it work? I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened.
Yeah, I think we do have a 1 or 2 year gap. Like what Zhenpeng said, when you renew your proposal, it's not necessary the first cycle you get funded. So we have to probably wait a little bit because CPRIT is only 1 year, right? Once a year. Yeah, there's many other funding mechanism. For example, high risk, high impact, high risk mechanism. You can use this mechanism to have some bridge fund to help you to continue doing research. And we more or less constantly have a funding to support the direction we push forward. And you're gonna have some money to continue doing research, right? And in the meantime, I think it's important to continue polish, improve the quality of your proposal, and so you can get funded eventually.
Yeah, thank you. That's again two amazing advice, and I had no doubt about it considering the 2 panelists. And so maybe Zhenpeng, you can tell us about why go for a renewal versus a completely new application. What are the pros and the cons, and what for example, even for why you decide a renewal and not a new application? What was the reason for it?
Yeah. So I can definitely comment on this one. I think if it's along the same line or along the same direction, I think it makes a sense to submit a renewal application. It shows your track record in this area, it shows your previous success. If you're pursuing a slightly different direction, then I think maybe a new application makes more sense. As we discussed previously, the reviewers would want to look at your progress during from the previous award, and your publications and track record. So we have actually worked. I think we have been more or less continuously funded by CPRIT through the two mechanisms. One is the high impact, high reward. That's a one-time award, so that you can't actually renew. The individual research investigator award, you can submit a renewal application. So if you have new ideas and new directions you want to try, I think the high risk, high reward, may be a good avenue where you may not necessarily have lots of preliminary data, but if you've done lots of work, you have been very successful in the first 3 years of the individual research award, that I think can make definitely go for renewal.
Thank you. Yeah. So we have also some question from the chat, but yeah, please, Jay.
I just add a few things and a couple comments. And CPRIT 3 years, but it give you a 1 actual years extension, no cost extension. So that helps. Right? That helps because sometimes experiment is not go the way you want, and you need the actual time. And so that 1 year no cost extension actually help to prepare a stronger either renew proposal or new proposal. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jie. And so, as I say, we have some question from the chat. We'll get to it in a minute. But before, just keeping on the same track that we were talking now. So, there's anything, Jie, that you would suggest people to do early on? When you receive the grant, everybody's celebrating, is very happy you get a grant. But like, can you already early on prepare towards your renewal? And so, what is your experience?
I think at least the renew in general is wait, right, until pretty much the end of the third year you can start renew, and that part I think focus on this grant and complete this what you proposed are more important, and also the lot of discovery eventually become a story or lie down the foundation for renew is pretty much like at the end of the grant. So I in my case I probably spend more time just getting things done, then think about later what's the new direction, because overall, my impression is that CPRIT is highly emphasized innovation, right? You cannot just extend what you studied most times. You have to have a quantized jump compared to your previous grant proposal. So that's very important. And in our case, we since most times we collaborate with my collaborator at UT Southwestern, we start to talk about idea and prepared maybe 6 months, and then later work on the details. Yeah.
I think that's that's a great advice, and I think focusing first of, just to summarize, focusing first of get it done what you need to get done, and then start to think about out of the box for your renewal. That's absolutely, I agree, an amazing advice. And so maybe example you can so, excuse me, based on your experience, you can comment on one of the questions that a few people had. Is there any particular area or topic that is more likely to get funded for CPRIT? So this is value also for new application, right? If I start to think about a new application, is there any area that I should perhaps target because it's more likely to get funded?
Yes, so I think CPRIT definitely cancer, and my experience has been maybe somehow limited to cancers in the central nervous system, in the brain and spinal cord. We started in the brain because we're looking at the blood-brain barrier. That that's what makes sense for us. And then we shifted our technology to the spinal cord because I think that's an area we think we can make a significant difference. There's no other technologies that can do that. Although in the spinal cord, the cancer is a little rare compared with other cancers. I think if you can if you think you can make a significant difference, make an impact in the field, the reviewers would appreciate that. On the other hand, many cancers in the peripheral system, they do end up in the brain and spinal cord. So that's my limited experience in the central nervous system. I think it maybe focus on the research questions and what makes most sense. Maybe Jia can comment. On whether I don't feel like they discriminate any particular cancer.
Yeah, it's about how your idea make difference in a cancer, either detection or treatment. And I think Jianpeng and I will all more or less focus on the cancer diagnosis and also treatment. So less a little bit limited to its translation aspect. But it's not necessarily always just the translation. There are a lot of fundamental questions regarding the cancer biology that it's really that can also be used for the proposed CPRIT applications. I think at the very end, at the bottom level, is how your idea make difference. Compared to the current idea in the field. At the fundamental level or translational level, that's you probably have to think, because my impression is the CPRIT is really emphasize the innovative idea, and yeah, so that's why I feel I'm working on the kidney cancer, breast cancer. And yes, this is also naturally developed from our research program that we think we can make a difference. And yeah, that's just my comments. Yeah.
Thank you, Jie. And just to continue the discussion, like, do you have any suggestion, any advice for someone that is submitting their first application to CPRIT? Maybe like what advice would you give yourself when you submit your first application?
I submit my first applications for the individual award. I had a little experience actually even in the animal imaging, animal research. The only key thing is the idea, right? And at that time, very few people studied the renal cleavable nanomedicine, and so reviewer, I guess, look at our work and consider it quite different when we demonstrate our renal cleavable nanoparticle can target tumors through a pH responsive way. Targeted tumor acidic microenvironment. So that's the idea at that time was very innovative. I think this is more important. Many of I think junior faculty probably have no enough experience in some, for example, let's say animal research. But if you really believe your idea are innovative, you should try. And I feel CPRIT I highly appreciate that part. The other suggestion I was also would like give you to the first submission, the people, and is CPRIT is also emphasized the collaborations. It's if you need to have a team work together with you. And that team member have different expertise or strengths, that's going to help you to develop a very solid and fundable proposal.
Absolutely, yeah. I actually have to say that both Dr. Zhang and Dr. Clint supported my CPRIT proposal when I came here, and that was key actually in getting my CPRIT. I have another question from the chat related, perhaps to what you just said, Gia, is that is it necessary to have animal study to be successful in a CPRIT proposal? And so I don't know if you want to comment on that.
It's that's very good questions. It's my high risk, high impact proposal only included the cellular study, but at that time it seems not sufficient enough for reviewer. And my older proposal we proposed involved animal research. So I would suggest it might be, but it really depends on your own research program. And if you can do it and demonstrate at the cellular level, I think will be fine. If your discovery, your proposed study make this field significantly different, I would think they will fund you too. But that's just my opinion. And for our research, it's more like a translational emphasized research. So animal study quite important because there's still a huge gap between the cellular study and the animal study. Yeah.
Thank you, Gia. And so another question from maybe Jampang, and then there is something else from the chat. So of course you and both of you and Gia have a lot of years of experience in getting CPRIT funding, submitting a successful application. But you know a lot now, but what you wish to know that you have known since the beginning, like what was the information you wish to have since your year one of submission?
Yeah, I can comment kind of relate to the last question. So if you think I think don't limit to animal studies. If you if I were going to start again, I would think about, okay, what's the maximum impact that I can achieve? If I need to have, for example, human specimens, biopsy, those, I think reviewers would probably appreciate that more than even more than animal studies, because it's human patient relevance. Overall, I think we had CPRIT support for 9-10 years. I think it's it's a very unique resource in Texas, and I would encourage everybody in the audience who's doing cancer related research to go ahead and try their review. I think their review process is similar to other NIH DoD funding. So their reviewers come from outside of Texas, and they sit together and they discuss, and then go through the applications. I think one aspect, if once you get the award, there's a little strict on the budgeting, rebudgeting. So make sure you think this through and put together some, what do you think is the most reasonable budget? And then, of course, you can do rebudgeting, but it involves processes.
Yeah. So you touch a bit on who are the CPRIT reviewer, which is one of the questions that comes from the chat, and also from the chat, Brandon is asking how competitive someone that doesn't have a cancer background can be for a CPRIT application.
Yeah, I just I want to comment this, and I had little cancer research background, and even animal research. And when I started to apply for CPRIT, I think it's actually it's the strength of the CPRIT. They more emphasize the idea, and for if you don't have a lot of cancer background, but your collaborator has, for example, animal research the experience and track record, that's probably good enough for CPRIT.
Great. Yeah. And so maybe we want to go back a bit on the reviewer just to be clear. So, Jennifer, you said the reviewer are from outside Texas. But are those medical doctor, chemists, biologists, are from academia, from company? Can you elaborate a bit more?
I think most of them are from academia, and particularly for the research, individual research. But a lot of them not is work in the medical school, not just chemistry. I think most of them in the medical school, if just from my experience, because the cancer imaging diagnosis, this kind of the research, most times are done by people in the medical school. But certainly there are cancer biologists also in the panel.
What about you, Jennifer? You have the same experience at mainly medical school?
Yeah, I think you can look up the review panel. I think it's public, so you can look up. There's yeah, I would agree. Probably majority are from the medical school side. I don't have a number count, but you can. Yeah, I think this is a public available information.
Yeah. So this is the last question that I have, unless there is more from the chat. And so, I mean, Zhengpeng touched a bit the difficulty of rebudgeting. But what about you, Jie? What is the most difficult? What was the difficulty you encountered after receiving the CPRIT award?
I think you know the pandemic was really a big hit, and it's very difficult. It was very difficult to recruit people to work on the project, and also the the supplies, animals, cost, everything's jumped to the sky. And actually, it's really your original proposed budget is not really sufficient enough to cover the supplies and the other expenses. I think that part is, if you ask the most challenging I ever encounter in a CPRIT or in the completing the CPRIT project. That's could be the most biggest challenge I encountered.
Yeah. And do any of you know if there is any mechanism to ask an increase in the budget or an extra money for CPRIT, like NIH, the instrument, for example, proposal? Is there anything like that for CPRIT that you're aware of?
I don't think there's any mechanism that can help in a separate mechanism that can help this kind of the challenging. Yeah, I don't think. Zhengpeng, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's you can increase your budget per se. Yeah, we do also have similar challenges. You know, just especially if you have like a 2 investigator, and you know, if you divide by 2, you know, given the work done, equal contribution, so that that does, you know, somehow, you know, shrink the budget. But to clarify on the previous point, I'm not complaining about rebudgeting. It's
it is challenging.
I appreciate
yes,
CPRIT's support.
It is a challenge. It is yeah. It's good to know in advance when you do the budget, because then change it is time consuming, and CPRIT is very peculiar about it. So yeah, it's good information to have. I think you know, everybody, it's good information to know. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, Emily confirmed there is no supplemental opportunity for CPRIT. So yeah, I don't. Oh, I have another question from the chat. So Brandon is asking, is there any way the CPRIT can support collaboration outside Texas, or has to be necessarily Texas based? I don't know if either of you have any experience.
You know, the collaboration with outside the state, I think I don't think you are allowed to give the money to them. You know, if it's just they help you, that's great. But I doubt there's a funding mechanism that allows you even budget their effort in the budget. Yeah.
Our in-house expert Emily wants to chime in, so please give us all the information, Emily.
Yeah, they won't let you send money outside the state. You can have, like Dr. Zhang just said, you can have collaborations. They can send in a support letter of how they'll help you, but you can't actually pay them. The only exception would be if you had like a consultant who was working on the project, then you could pay them in a consultant capacity, but not as like a sub-award or to somebody who's actually doing a portion of your scope of work. That wouldn't be allowed by CPRIT.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you. So this more practical question, and maybe Emily she's the right person to answer, but
Yeah.
what is the overheads that CPRIT supports?
So CPRIT's overhead is limited to 5.263%. And the fact that they put 5.263 tells you how very specific and kind of annoying CPRIT can be when it comes to things. They are challenging to work with, as everybody has said. They limit the IDC, and then they also require you to match it. But because they limit the IDC so much, we can use the residual of the IDC that we don't get as the match, so we don't have to actually come up with anything. But we do have to submit paperwork for it. Every single FSR that we submit, every financial report, we have to prove it. So it is a very small return that we get on these, and so that would impact your research enhancement, what comes back to you as well, because it's a tiny little bit that we collect on it. But I would like to just re-emphasize that they are more, I don't know how to phrase it. They're more in your business than the federal agencies are, which seems crazy right now, but they are very much, they go down to the absolute detail on all of your expenses. And they have had complete turnover at their agency right now. And so it's brand new people, and they are enforcing absolutely every single rule. We also have to have an audit every single year. The audit happens, we have to have it completed by Memorial Day is usually when it's due. And then they do desk audits as well. So you may not know it, but all of y'all have had a desk audit that you may not have even known was happening. So there's at least 2 or 3 audits that we have to perform for CPRIT each year. And so it's just, there's a lot of rules and there's a lot of things. We are very well versed in them. We can help you, but it does make it have some hurdles that you have to jump through and a lot of paperwork that we have to do. So that's just something to keep in mind when you work with a state agency, but especially CPRIT.
Thank you, Emily. And thank you, Zhang, for posting the annual report. That's a very useful link. Thank you. So I'm trying to check the chat. I don't think there is any more question. I don't know if any of you, Jie or Zhang, there's anything else you would like to add. If not, I'll give the ball back to Tiffany.
Can I make one comment real fast? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
So the CPRIT has 2 submission deadlines. The first is in January. Well, it's usually in January, and the other one is in June. The June one is open to anybody. You can submit. We don't have any limit on how many we can submit, so everybody can submit if they want to. And that is usually they made it align with the NIH deadline, which is crazy because most people who are applying for CPRIT are also applying for NIH. So they're just, I guess they're trying to see how bad you want it. But that's in June. And then there's another deadline that it used to happen in January, but they moved it up to December this year. So, but it's sometime around that time frame. And that one has limits on how many we can submit as an institution. We're always limited to 5 in one particular category. And then the other ones, we usually don't have much of a competition, but be sure to look for that one because the internal deadline will be at least 6 weeks before that. And if you want to submit to that one, you have to submit to the limited submission portal. And then we will have to run an internal competition to see which of the 5 out of however many we have are the ones that we choose to move forward. So just keep that in mind that June open to everybody, but the fall and winter one is a limited submission.
There is actually one more question again from the chat. I don't know if any of you also submitted to NCI, but how aligned are the reviewer comment between CPRIT and NCI? If you have any experience with those.
Yeah, I can try to comment on this. We actually got an NCI grant and CPRIT grant this in the last 6-12 months, and so I think the reviews are, I think they're generally aligned in one-off experience. And of course, you want to watch for, you don't want them to overlap. Your aims should be different, focus on different aspects of the project. The reviewers are, I would imagine it's the same people who would go to NIH as well.
Thank you. All right. If you don't have any other question, I want to thank again Jie and Zhenpeng to share their wisdom, their experience with us. I think that was absolutely illuminating. Thank you, Emily, to join us, giving some very important information, and I can give the ball back to Tiffany to close the meeting. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you all very much as well, both our moderator, our panelists, and all of you who attended, for joining us today for the Mastering the CPRIT Language Insider Strategies for Successful Submissions. Next up, consider joining us on Tuesday, February 11th for the Data Management Symposium. I'll drop a link in the chat for you so that you can register if you'd like, if you find that a little bit easier. More programming can be found on UT Dallas Office of Research and Innovation webpage. I will also add that in the chat momentarily as well. I do have a survey that I would love for you all to complete. If you have a moment, please scan that QR code and provide us your feedback. And we hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Let us know if you have any questions.
Bye. Good luck.
Thank you.
CPRIT.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Yeah.